Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women. On this show, you will learn how to create wealth through real estate the blissful way. That means with very little stress and very little time. We talk about strategies, mindset, heart set, money smarts, resources, and so much more to ensure you're able to create the success you most deeply desire. Now, here's your host, Monica Sawyer.
Today, I am so excited to welcome to the show Sallie Wagner. Sallie is a #1 international bestselling author, lawyer, real estate broker, speaker, and life alchemist. I love that. She provides broker and contract compliance consulting services to 2,500 plus real estate agents throughout Florida. She also owns and operates a real estate school. Her powerful transformation tools include emotional freedom technique, which you guys have heard, EFT, and neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, so clients move into action for rapid, concrete results. Clients reclaim conscious choice in their lives and discover and live the life that makes them come alive. Yay! Welcome to the show, Sallie. How are you?
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I've been looking so forward to this show. I love my mindset shows. Like, of course, the strategy shows are so important, but I'm all about the mindset with the blissful investor thing, so I just love this.
Yes.
So, Sallie, could you give us kind of the high level 2-minute version of how you got to where you are? Like, why are you doing real estate and why taking this angle?
Yeah. So I spent most of my career in the corporate world, positions like general counsel, in-house counsel, those kinds of things, primarily real estate related. So I worked for big corporations, managing real estate transactions, working on real estate transactions. And so I've always been involved in real estate throughout my decades-long career, longer than I care to admit. So when I looked at going out on my own, it was natural that I would start doing something in real estate. And so that's how I started with my own business, providing compliance services to real estate brokerages. I teamed up with my now colleague. So now we do broker and compliance services to brokerages throughout Florida.
Okay, nice. Thank you for that. So talk to us a little bit about why you chose mindset as the thing that you want to talk about today. I know how important it is. So, But why is that sort of your highlight today?
Well, I think everything comes from that. And Bob Proctor, rest in peace, I think he said it's 95% mindset and 5% what you do. Mm-hmm. It all starts with mindset. And when you think about it, it makes sense because mindset includes the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. We have this constant chatter. And so what are the things you're telling yourself? Are they things about I'm successful, I'm productive, I'm powerful, I can be in business on my own? Or is it the snarky 6-year-old who's going, what are you smoking? What are you thinking about? You wish you could do all those things, right? So It all starts with mindset. And if I may, I do a lot with critical thinking, and there's a progression that'll sound familiar to people, I'm sure, but thoughts determine feelings, feelings determine decisions, decisions determine actions, actions determine results, and results reinforce those thoughts. So everything starts with thoughts. Everything starts with mindset.
Yeah. So interesting. I was having a conversation with a woman yesterday. We're actually starting to invest in some different things. Like my husband and my family, my husband handles the stock portfolio. I handle the real estate portfolio. But I'm interested in some other explorations right now. There's so many new opportunities, right? And I'm never still. I want to discover all this stuff. And so I'm talking to this one woman about some of this stuff. And she has a mastermind that they've developed. It's just 3 women. And one of the women, excuse me, is very, very wealthy. Like she's like, oh yeah, I'll put in $400,000 into this investment, which even makes me choke. I can't imagine putting $400,000 into anything that's not real estate, right? Anything that's liquid. But that's silliness too, right? But whatever. But she was so funny because she says, hanging out with this woman, my mind has completely changed. I look at things in a different way and I make quicker decisions. I have a lot more confidence in my decisions, and I'm not derailed by people around me that are telling me that it's not going to work, or they're expressing all of their fears and sort of projecting those onto me in my decision-making process. And I was so proud of her. There were two big things that I really took away from that. And I didn't need to share with her, she was doing a great job. But those two things that I really loved were: understand that your mindset is going to determine your success for all of the reasons that you just said. And the second thing is, your mindset will evolve based on the people that you hang out with. Yes. And so much of the time, people are out there, they're scared of real estate. They're scared of the stock market. They're scared of all these other things because they don't know. And that's fair, right? Mm-hmm. But because they're scared does not mean that when they share their fear and impose that on you or project it on you, that you have to take that on. You need to be around people that are going to uplift your mindset and support your goals. Now, if there are people that are where you want to be, and they say maybe that's not a good idea, now that's a person you listen to. But most of the people, right? You want to listen to your mentors and coaches and people that are successful in the industry that you're looking to be successful in. But in general, most of us don't understand. What's also really, really interesting is that once you understand that, when you experience fear about something, so I experience fear around crypto and NFTs and all these words that I don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. But because I understand that I don't want other people projecting their fear onto me, I'm very, very careful to not project my fear around those things onto people that are being successful at that or starting out in that. My only suggestion is make sure that your mentor, where you're learning, is someone who is where you want to be. So they've experienced success and over the long term, right? Even crypto has been around for 12 years. Yeah. So people can have gone through cycles and experienced the roller coaster that Bitcoin is, right? So whatever it is that you're investing in, don't take on fear. So hang out with the right people, right? But your mindset is the very first place, because if you're not in the right mindset, those people are not going to want to hang out with you.
Exactly.
Isn't that true? Yeah. Like if you're kind of, I'm scared, I don't want to do it, I can't take action, this won't work, all of those things, then those people don't want to hang out with you either, because you pull them down. Yeah. Right. So we always want to hang out with people that are our equals or our peers, and we learn from one another. Right. So the one thing that you do not want to be bringing to the table is negativity. Yes. Right. Yeah. So anyways, I just kind of hijacked that, but that's why I'm so excited about this conversation, not only because it's you, Sallie, and because I'm excited to talk to you, but I just had this conversation yesterday and I saw the level of success that's created by managing that mindset. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me about some of the tools that you use. We're going to be talking about the tools of the business, but the tools that you use for your mindset. Yeah.
So I use an acronym, MSG, mindset, skill set, get off your asset. Because, it gets a chuckle, it's memorable, and it brings together some very important principles, because as important as mindset is, most of us are not taught to have that right mindset, and if anything, we're taught not to, because as you said, we have all these messages from people around us. We're constantly bombarded with society, family, friends, most of them all well-meaning, right? Mm-hmm. And yet it changes our mindset to one that is suboptimal. And so in order to have that mindset, many times we need a new skill set. We need to learn skills about how do we identify mindset, how do we change it, how do we maintain it, how do we make sure we're in the room with the right people, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in a room and you're the smartest and the prettiest and the funniest and the most successful, you're probably in the wrong room, right?
That's exactly right. Let's say that again. Yeah. If you're the best in a room, you're probably in the wrong room. It feels super good. It's a great ego boost, but you will learn in every room. So I don't want to say you're not going to learn, right? Yeah. But you're going to be elevated if you're in a different room, right?
Absolutely. So, and that's part of the skill set, to learn that, to learn to, as you were saying, listen to those mentors, listen to those people who are where you I don't want to say hope, but where you are planning to be, right?
Yes.
Because it is a plan, it is a goal, and you're going to get there. It's a strategy. So it's not just hope, it's not just wishing. People who are where you're going, those are the people you want to be around, and you want to cultivate that mindset of openness. To be able to receive that information instead of being very closed and go, oh yeah, I know that. I've tried that. I've done that. It didn't work, right? How many people do we hear like that? So that's a skill set. And then
let's stop for just a minute.
Yeah.
So, because I want to go back to that, Sallie, that's super, super important. So I want to highlight it. Many of you ladies have heard this stuff before. You've even heard it on my show before, right? So really, it's not that there's nothing new under the sun, ladies. It's all said in different ways. There are new techniques that are altered and adjusted and brought to the market and brought to our minds. And so much of the time, you'll hear something like we've had EFT on this show a lot. People will be like, oh, I heard that on Monica's show, and then they'll tune out, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you're hearing it from a different voice, other things may click with you. And the reality is that the last EFT person that was on the show was a year ago, and she did a process for us, right? And maybe that didn't work for you, but you are a different person today than you were a year ago. So your response to the technique may be different, or maybe Sallie does it a little bit different, or, because there are different ways, everybody puts their own personality into the process. And that's for the healer as well as for the recipient. Yes. Right. So ladies, as we're having this conversation, understand that, first of all, don't, and I know you ladies don't, you guys are really respectful and great, but don't tune out because you've kind of heard this before. Stay fully engaged, stay fully present. And the other thing is, just because you've heard something doesn't mean that it doesn't work. If you've tried it, you're in a different place today. If you haven't tried it, you've just heard it over and over and over again, you might consider trying it. Right? Because nothing happens unless you take action, right? So I just want to highlight that I've heard it before, and I'm guilty of this all the time too. We have so much stuff coming into our minds and into our worlds. The I've heard it is kind of a protection mechanism. But when you're listening to somebody that you respect, put the I've heard it aside and come with a beginner's mind, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Be open to all of that. In fact, I don't know if people can see, but I'm holding my hands up like this. Studies show that when you hold your hands up like this, your mind is more open, you're more receptive to learning, you're better able to learn and retain information. So there you go. That's it. Be open to knowledge from wherever it comes.
And ladies, you can go to blissfulinvestor.com and look up the blog post for Sallie, and you'll be able to see that video, so you can see how she was holding her hands. That was beautiful. Okay, so go ahead and keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's fabulous. I love the conversation. So skill set, and then we have to put it into action, right? If we don't take action, nothing happens, nothing changes. And that is a skill, a very important skill, to be able to take action, because we have that tendency to procrastinate, right? I mean, I do it. We all do it. I've written articles recently on procrastination and how to overcome it. It's a skill that we have learned to cope with certain things, and taking action is a skill that we can also learn to overcome that procrastination. So it all goes back to the skill set and the mindset, and that allows us to take action and put everything into practice. Otherwise, it's just a picture on the vision board, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Part of the skill set is really learning to be decisive, right? It's learning to trust yourself.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about some of the skills that help to build that mindset?
Yeah, I think anything that is resilience related. And I speak a lot about resilience. I think it's such an important thing. And resilience is really MSG in practice. The 4 major areas of resilience in our lives: physical, emotional, mental, social. They all come together. As you build physical resilience, your body is more capable, you're better able to withstand challenges that come to you, if it's stress, if it's illness, if it's injury, whatever it is. And there are specific ways to build that with physical activity. You know, if you're sitting more than an hour, studies show that your body is going to deteriorate. So when you're coming up on the hour mark, stand up, move around, take a couple of steps, do something, get into physical activity, right? Avoid negative substances and restrict behaviors. So the negative substances could be, it's not always about alcohol and drugs. It could be caffeine. It could be gluten. It could be whatever is harmful to me personally, right? Mm-hmm. And binge restrict is not always about eating and drinking. It could be that streaming service. Mm-hmm. All those kinds of things. Emotional resilience, you know, our ability to access our positive emotions when we choose. That's mindset. Mm-hmm. that we don't get caught into those low frequency emotions, but we can actually choose to respond rather than react to life events. Mm-hmm. And then we have mental resilience. This is our ability to come up with systems and processes, have a different perspective, mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Access our creativity, come up with creative solutions and consider different people's perspectives on things. That's opening our minds to mentors and knowledge. And then the last one is the social resilience, which is our community, our ability to ask for and give help to others, our families, our friends, our neighbors, everyone in our community. And studies show that the more connected you are to your community, the more successful you are likely to be. So all of those things that can build resilience are so important in life and in business.
Yeah. So could you talk to me a little bit about the social resilience and what you mean by people are more successful based on social resilience? Let's dig deeper on that.
So social resilience, as I said, is our ability to connect with others, family, friends, society, our communities, our groups that we're members of, and the ability to know that there is somebody there. When you need help, you can ask for help. And they'll give it to you, you know, mm-hmm. like a trusted mentor, for example. That's social resilience. And the ability to give help in return. And the more connected we are socially, the studies show that we tend to be more successful in life and in business. And mm-hmm. because we have those networks of people we can call upon. And here's a fun thing. People can build a little bit of social resilience. The next time you have a chance, shake hands with somebody. And as you do that, tell them thank you. And the studies show, I always refer to studies, and studies can say anything, right? However, the studies show that when we do that, the touch and the expression of gratitude, we actually produce a hit of oxytocin in our brains, mm-hmm. which is the trust hormone. And that makes it more likely for us to want to help each other and support each other in business, in life, in whatever ways. And the more we do that, the more we deepen that oxytocin trust bond. And totally self-serving, that's a fabulous time to ask somebody for a referral, because you've already softened them up with oxytocin, right? So
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. That's so interesting. So it's been such a fascinating thing over the pandemic, over the last couple of years, how our communities have changed so dramatically, right? We spend more of our time on Zoom and less of our time touching one another and saying hello. Even when we see each other and we're in each other's energy space, we don't touch each other, right? So I think that we have changed the way that we socialize. And mm-hmm. some of it's certainly going to stick. Like I couldn't have this interview with you, Sallie, if it wasn't for amazing Zoom. Like I love that, right? Yeah. But I think that our communities and having that physical, at least being in people's energy space is really, mm-hmm. really important. But I think one of the big keys here, Sallie, that you mentioned, and I want to highlight, is it does still need to be the right people. Now, that does not mean don't hang out with your friends, don't hang out with your family. The people that you love certainly have a place in your life and it should be valued and loved and cherished, right? But
Mhm.
when you're thinking about progressing in your business, you also need to have a community that really supports that evolution, like we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Evolution and growth and expansion and open mind and new ideas and lots of opportunities, right? So you need that community to support you in that way also. And I think that so much of the time we focus for social resilience, we focus in our personal life. Like, I need support because my parents are elderly, or I need support because someone I love passed, which we've had a lot of over the last year, or,
Mhm.
I've got something that I'm dealing with, whatever it is. Right. So we are used to, at least as women normally, like, I'm not actually very good at asking for help. I'm getting better. But and then of course there's the receiving it, right, without feeling guilty, right? So those are all skill sets too.
Mhm.
We're used to it in our personal lives. We tend to not want to do it in our business lives because
Yeah.
as women, we feel like it makes us look stupid. The
Yes.
problem is that if you're so afraid of looking stupid, you're going to look stupid because, forgive me for that, but because you're not learning, you don't know what you're doing, and you're pretending that you're
Yes.
something that you're not. And you know what? People can see right through that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I've experienced that myself. And for me, it was perfectionism, that
Yes.
mindset of I have to be perfect. And if I ask somebody something, then that shows I'm not perfect, right?
Hmm.
And so we miss out on so many opportunities because of our mindset.
Hmm.
And clearly, I'm not perfect. And more importantly, I don't have to be, right?
Right.
And so I think the something to remember here is it's not what you don't know that holds you back. It's what you do know that's not true that holds you back. So
Mm.
the idea that I have to be perfect is something that's not true that holds me back
Hmm.
in business and in life. So when we can identify those kinds of things, and that's all part of mindset, then we are open to asking and receiving.
Right. My little sister once said about my nephew, because everybody was saying, oh, there was some stuff going on with him. And my little sister said, he's perfect just the way he is, as long as you don't compare him to other people.
Yeah.
And I think and that's something I take with me so much of the time because I frequently am like, oh, I don't know this. I don't, like, I don't want to look dumb. I don't want to ask too many questions, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And you're right. It is about perfectionism, Sally, because I remind myself, you're perfect just the way you are, as long as you don't
Mm-hmm.
compare yourself to other people. So allow
Yeah.
yourself to be who you are, because who we are today is what do you want to say? A jumping board? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Where you're just heading to the next place, right? And there are going to be people that are going to be delighted to help you get there. Right.
Absolutely.
And unless you ask questions, you're not going to know if you're hanging out with the right people. Because there are going to be people that are going to judge you and
Yeah.
whatever and get snarky. Don't hang out with them. Thank God, thank goodness you didn't find that out after 2 years investing in that relationship. Find out fast. Like, if they're
Yes.
not going to tolerate your questions and your curiosity and your personality and your goals, then they're not really that person that's going to help to elevate you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that brings up one of those things that we know that's not true, right? That everybody has to like us, so that we have to like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying treat people disrespectfully. However, it's okay that you don't want to be around certain people, and it's okay that they don't want to be around you. Find the people who are supporting you, as you say, in your goals, in your accomplishments, and in the vision of where you're going in life.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Not everybody's going to be there.
Well, not only is it okay, it's preferred. We've only got 24 hours in a day,
Yeah.
right? You only have a certain amount of time to be social. Make sure it counts. Like, make sure it's
Yes.
really, really fun
Yes.
and good for you. Like, make sure it's one of your bliss things, not
Yeah.
one of your obligatory things, right?
Right. Right.
So we've only got so much to give, right? You want to make sure that when
Mhm.
you're giving, that you're also being nourished and elevated,
Yes.
and all of those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is
I just
hard. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and maybe it's just me, but I've had similar conversations. For me, it was such an epiphany when it just suddenly like, oh my gosh, not everybody has to like me, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 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 Because I'm a pleaser too, a people pleaser too. So I was like, oh, that person didn't like me.
Yeah,
but now I feel it. I give it about 5 minutes and then I'm done. Like whatever, it doesn't matter. So I do allow myself, if I'm feeling sad, very, very definitively, I did not have a connection with that person. Right.
Yeah.
But it feels a little bit bad. But then I realized, well, that person that I didn't have an affinity with, if I tried to build that relationship, how many phone calls, how many emails, how much time would it take to build a relationship that I don't have an affinity with, as opposed to, and how much pressure and work, right? As opposed to if it was a fun person that we were aligned, and we enjoy spending time together, right? So
yes,
it's great. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is, so this show is all about taking action. So let's talk about taking action and creating the plan for building that mindset to achieve certain goals.
Yeah. So I think there are 3 things you want to consider with mindset: perspective, reason, will. Perspective, and we've talked about this before, it's our ability to view things from other perspectives. And, we all probably remember the story of the blind man and the elephant, and each of them experienced the elephant in a different way. So, trunk, tail, tusks, and they defined it in a different way based on their perspective. And actually,
could you tell us that story? I haven't heard that one.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm old, but I remember as a child reading this story, and there were like 9 or 10 people, men who were experiencing the elephant. And, so one person had the trunk, and one person had a tusk and a tail and an ear, and so then they were all talking about, well, what was the elephant? Describe it. And they all described it differently because they had all experienced a different part of the elephant. And, they were all right because, there's the tail, there's what it felt like, but they were all wrong because their perspective was incomplete. And the truth is, our perspective is always incomplete. Mm-hmm. And so depending on what our perspective is, it's either going to move you forward or hold you back, right? Mm-hmm. And so just be aware that, we tend to have blinders on, and that's partly because of our training. It's partly because of how our brains work with the reticular activating system. We see what we're looking for. We don't see what we're not looking for. And so if you can kind of open that up and take those blinders off, you broaden your perspective. So that's all part of mindset. So become aware of that. And I think the easiest entry point into mindset is to look at the results you have in your life. And if you're happy with those results, perfect. Do more of what you're doing, right? If there's a result that you're not quite happy with, then the easiest entry point to change that is to look at your thinking about that and change your thinking. So I think all of that, and perhaps the answer as you change your thinking is to have a different perspective. In NLP, we call that reframing. Everybody's heard about reframing, right? Mm-hmm. So tell yourself a different story and you're going to get a different result.
Yeah. It's so funny because I'll frequently say, you're always making up stories. Everything that goes on in your mind, you're making up. It's your story. Yeah. You might as well make up stories that make you feel blissful, right? Yes. Stories that make you feel bad, right?
Oh my gosh. I have a perfect example if you don't mind. So
I don't mind.
Years ago, I was with a very successful real estate agent in this area. And she was doing some lead gen cold calls. And so she was starting to make a call, and she said, I'm going to call up my friend Bob. I'm making up a name, but, and I'm like, oh, she knows Bob. So she calls him up, and he hung up on her. It was a cold call. She obviously didn't know this person.
Oh, got it.
But I thought from the way she approached it, It was her friend, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the way she approached it. That was the story she was telling herself about Bob.
Mhm.
And when he hung up on her, she was like, "Oh, we got disconnected." I'm like, "Are you stupid? He just hung up on you. You didn't get disconnected." But she called him back and she was like, "Oh my gosh, we got disconnected for some reason. I'm so sorry." And, tried to talk to him again. Boom, he hangs up on her. "Oh, golly, we got disconnected again. You know what? He needs a smile. I'm going to ask so and so, an agent on her team, I'm going to ask her to go and see him at his house and give him a smile because he just needs somebody to make him smile." And I'm just like, oh my gosh. But that's the perspective, right? That's the story she was telling herself about. She was there to contact her friend. And if her friend was not happy to hear from her, then he obviously needed somebody to help him smile. So those are the kind of stories that we can tell ourselves to change our results.
Yeah, what a wonderful example. And I love that you and I are mindset people and we're both like, what?
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
And it's so funny, right? Because it sounds hokey, right?
yeah,
But those of us grounded in reality, we know what's really going on. But does that help us? Like, I don't have fun doing cold calls. I would probably have a lot more fun if I had her attitude. So the reality is that we create the story in our head, right? We have the story. We create the reality for ourselves. Now, we're not necessarily creating the reality for the world around us, although many times we are, right? Because people take on our energy and they start to experience life differently when they're around you. Mm-hmm. But you are experiencing your own personal response to any given situation.
Yeah. And that's the emotional resilience, to be able to tap into those positive emotions when we choose, so that we're responding rather than reacting.
Exactly. Good. So let's talk about developing the action steps to achieve specific goals.
Yes. So, and that's important because it's not only the goals, it's the system and the process. Because goals can be overwhelming and intimidating, and we look at the goal and we think, how am I ever going to get there? Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about reverse engineering goal setting to the present. So you ask yourself, people will recognize this. What's the one thing I can do today that will move me in the direction of that goal, right? Mm-hmm. And so I break it down into daily steps that will move me in the right direction every single day. And it's important to do that because if we're focused on the goal, guess what? We're living in a constant state of failure because I'm only successful when I get to the goal. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Well, if I've only lost 19, I'm still a failure, right? Because I haven't met the goal. But if my goal is to improve my health, improve my nutrition, and I'm doing things every single day, then I'm successful every single day because I'm moving in the right direction. So systems and processes over the goals always. Break it down into the daily step. What am I going to do today that will continue to move me in the right direction? And that may change from day to day, right? Because we're going to course correct. It's not always a straight line to that goal. The NASA Apollo moon projects were off course 97% of the time, and they made it to the moon and back. Mm-hmm. So, and it was because of that constant course correction, right? So we're always going to be adjusting and correcting our course from day to day, and yet we're still moving in the right direction. So one way that you can launch into action is, first of all, write it down. So write your goal down, write your steps down. When you do that, you increase your chances of success to 56%. And then the next step, and there are only 3 steps, the next step is to share that goal with somebody. So you have an accountability partner, and maybe it's your mentor, maybe it's coach, maybe it's whomever, but it's an accountability partner because we can't hold ourselves accountable, right? We have to have somebody else to do it. When you do that, and when you come up with those daily action steps, you increase your chances of success to 64%. And then the third step is,
can I interject there really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
The accountability partner should be not someone who's going to be supportive all the time. So,
Right.
and what I mean by this is you should be embarrassed if you report that you didn't achieve your goal.
Yeah.
Not like so much that you don't want to show up, not so much that you like, or get the response from the other person that you don't like them anymore. But I do think that it's important that you should be really embarrassed with your accountability partner to say, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And you should feel like you have to explain why and what your plan is to catch up. Right. So your accountability partner is not your best buddy where you're both like, oh, I didn't lose anything last week. Oh, I didn't lose anything last week either. We might as well just go get a milkshake.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah. Right. Yeah.
I've had those accountability partners. I'm telling you, it has the opposite effect.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's and it's a weird thing, because I have these in my life, and it's like it's not that you want to do it for them, but somehow there's something about that relationship that inspires you to be the best you, and so that's why you do it, not to please them, but to honor yourself. So if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And you should value their opinion enough that if they say something that's hard to hear, that you're able to step back and not get all flustered or offended or defensive. Right. That you're able to say, okay, maybe they have a point. Let me think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You need to be willing to listen with open hands, right? Listen so that you're receptive to the learning and without being so defensive that you're just going to go, what do they know?
That's right.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
Great.
And then the third piece is to make progress reports back to that accountability partner, which is what you were just saying, so that at least once a week, you're reporting back on your progress over the past week, because the accountability is key. And then the progress report is key. When you do that, you increase your chances of success up to 76%.
And I just want to say that, this isn't hokey pokey. I mean, like, or hocus pocus, rather. Yeah. Hokey pokey could be fun. Anyways, but the hocus pocus, you look at in corporate, what have all the corporations, if you know anybody in corporate, what have they instilled? Yeah. It's the agile programs.
Yes.
So they've got 2-week sprints. And then at the end of those 2 weeks on their deadline, they have to report to everybody what they achieved, how they had to course correct, what didn't work, what did work. What if now you found that system that you guys were all working on isn't working, you have to course correct completely, new product, new features, right? But the whole agile framework is about accountability.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right? Yeah. And it forces people, they know that they've got a 2-week window to achieve a certain number of goals, and they're given the goals, or they discuss, or they create those goals all for themselves. And then they have a whole accountability meeting to figure out what's next, right? It's done in corporate all the time. And everybody, not everybody, but I haven't yet met anybody recently in the last 2 years that's not on some version of the agile format.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, but because we may not be in corporate, we may not have that experience. And so you have to sort of create it for yourself. Yeah. So with Agile, they do a 2-week thing, right? Sally's recommending 1 week. You need to find what works really well for you. And 1 month is usually not going to work. 3 weeks is usually not going to work. Your maximum is about
so long in between reports, because then it's easy not to do it, right? Because you think, oh, I've got a whole month before I have to do blah, blah, blah. And then it never happens, right? And then,
exactly.
Yeah. So you're kind of setting yourself up not to succeed there.
Right. This has been so good. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. And ladies, we actually have a surprise for you, an extra. Sallie, who's an NLP master, is going to give us a process. She calls it the ring of power, which is basically stacking anchors so that you can choose different states. We call it in NLP states. A state is like confidence, passion, what do you say? Calm,
Yeah.
self-reliance, joyful. There's lots of different states, and you can use these states for different things. Like I have different rings of power for when I'm going on a date with my husband, or when I'm making cold calls, or when I'm sitting at my desk, or when I'm speaking, or when I'm doing a podcast, right? So you can create these different rings that you can hold at different times, so that you can use them in your life. And we've never had anybody do it for you ladies on this show. It's a tool that I use all the time, every day. I've got many of them. So I'm super excited that she's going to be sharing that with you. It'll be a useful tool. So I'm super, super excited that Sallie's been generous enough to offer that in extra. So thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And Sallie, could you tell them a little bit about your free gift?
Yes, I would love to. It is an ebook. It is entitled Reboot Your Thinking with MSG. And we've already talked about what MSG is. Reboot Your Thinking is a signature coaching program that I developed. So this is just a little taste of what that is, because I think as we develop mindset, skill set, and action, we need to reboot the way we think.
Yeah. And so MSG is mindset, skill set, and get off your asset. I love that.
Yes.
And the website to go to, the URL to go to get this free ebook is blissfulinvestor.com/reboot. And reboot is REBOOT. So blissfulinvestor.com/reboot. And you can get this free ebook. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. You're very welcome.
Yeah. And are you ready for our 3 rapid fire questions, Sallie?
I am.
Okay. Sallie, give us one super tip on getting started investing in real estate.
I would say start small and figure out what the market is before you get started.
Okay. And then what is one strategy on being successful as a real estate investor?
Continue to stay knowledgeable about what's going on. Understand the basics, understand that things change, particularly in the area of fair housing, which can be very problematic for people.
Got it. Fair housing, is that what you said?
Yes.
What specifically are you referring to there?
So for a lot of property managers, at least in this area, there are testers in the area, and they're being hit with claims of fair housing violations for various reasons.
Oh, interesting.
So, for example, it could be with screening for criminal background checks, service animals, emotional support animals, familial status. Those are hot button items that I'm seeing a lot of.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then what is one daily practice you do, Sallie, that contributes to your personal success?
It's all around building resilience. So I find ways to build resilience in those 4 areas: physical, emotional, mental, social, every single day.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining Sallie and I for this portion of the show. If you are subscribed to Extra, stay tuned. We've got more. We're going to be doing a Ring of Power process, so that you can be powerful in whatever you're doing in your day or in your business. So stay tuned for that. If you are not subscribed to Extra but would like to be, go to Real Estate Investing for Women Extra.com and you can check it out there. For those of you that are leaving Sallie and I now, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for all that you're doing in your life and continuing to stick with me. I just love you, ladies. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. And until then, remember, goals without action are just dreams. So get out there, take action, and create the life your heart deeply desires. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to find out more about how to become a blissful millionaire, go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.